would formally like to begin this webinar today about applying for studies at Lund University. Welcome to everyone that has joined us from all parts of the globe. It's a great pleasure to meet you today. My name is Timothy Parker. I work as an international communications officer here at External Relations in the International Marketing and Recruitment team at Lund University, and I will be one of your presenters today.
Yeah, and I'll introduce myself as well. My name's Rebecca. I also work in the International Marketing and Recruitment team as a regional manager, and I support various countries, including the UK, India, and Turkey. So yeah, I'm happy to join and present with Tim today.
Absolutely. And fun fact for everyone, both myself and Rebecca have previously been international students studying an English taught international degree program at Lund University. So I myself am from New Zealand, so I completely understand the feeling of wanting to know more about university and about the process of making an application and moving to Lund University. And I can assure you that the entire process was a fantastic experience for me personally. And I'm sure, Becca, you would say the same thing as well.
I would totally agree. I also studied a 2-year master's program at Lund, and I'm originally from the United Kingdom. So we can both, I think, empathize with the international student experience.
Absolutely. So let's have a look at what's on the agenda for today. So we will be making a presentation to you for about 45 minutes to an hour. And then after that, myself and Rebecca will answer any questions you may have about applying to studies at Lund University or student life, or any questions really that you might have about Lund University. So you will be able to answer these questions to us using the Q&A feature that you can see on your screen. Just bear in mind to please watch the presentation first, because we have put a lot of time and effort into the presentation. So we do hope that we answer any questions that you may have. But if you still have questions afterwards, you can ask them in the Q&A feature, and Rebecca and myself will answer them for you. So on the agenda today, we will be discussing what makes Sweden such a special country, why to study at Lund University. We will discuss the international English taught bachelor's degree programs that we offer here, as well as the international English taught master's degree programs that we offer here at Lund University. We will discuss tuition fees. We will go into quite a bit of detail about the application process, which I am sure you are all wondering about, given that you're attending this webinar today. And we will also discuss living costs as an international student in Sweden, scholarships and other funding options. And we will also talk about some top tips for making a successful application to Lund University. So let's get started. All right, so Lund University is located in the country of Sweden, which is often called the land of innovation and ideas. So Sweden has a population of about 10 million people, and it is located in Northern Europe in Scandinavia. So geographically speaking, Sweden is actually the 5th largest country in Europe. So by land area, it's the 5th largest country in Europe, but its population of 10 million is relatively small. So what this means is that Swedes and everyone living in Sweden is very accustomed to having a lot of access to nature, a lot of peaceful and quiet places. So there's a lot of room for everyone here in Sweden. And as I'm sure many of you know, the 3 largest cities in Sweden are the capital city of Stockholm, the city of Gothenburg, which is located on the west coast of Sweden, and the 3rd largest city in Sweden is the city of Malmö, and that is the city that you can see in this photo here. So on the right-hand side, you can actually see a skyscraper there, a very interestingly designed skyscraper that is turning torso. And that is, in fact, the tallest building in Scandinavia. And the city of Malmö, as we will discuss later, is located very, very close to Lund as well. All right, so what is Sweden known for? Well, Sweden is, of course, very famous and very well known for having a very high standard of living. And Sweden is also very famous and internationally renowned for having a very strong, very robust democracy. Sweden is also known for gender equality. Many of you may have heard of the very generous parental leave scheme here in Sweden, where both the male and the female, or both parties of a relationship are have an equal amount of time to take parental leave to look after children. Sweden is also known for its creativity and innovation. And in fact, many famous innovations and creations in Swedish society have in fact come based out of research conducted right here at Lund University. And Sweden is also world famous and a world leader when it comes to sustainability. So, and in fact, right here at Lund University, we have some world leading degree programs and researchers working in this area. And I'm sure that many of you have heard of the world famous climate activist Greta Thunberg, who is also from Sweden. And if you look at the screen here, you will notice a selection of iconic products and cultural items from Sweden. So you will notice in the top corner there, you can see IKEA, which is a furniture store, which is basically featured in most countries across the globe. That is an innovation that has come out of Sweden. Some other very famous Swedish brands are H&M, the clothing outlet, and Volvo, the car manufacturer as well. In the bottom of the screen, you can see a small award for the Nobel Prize, and Sweden is of course the land excuse me, the land of the Nobel Prize, and which is selected every year in areas such as literature, science, and economics. And we also have here on screen a picture of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, a famous Swedish footballer. Of course, the Swedish women's national team is also very famous for having achieved a great deal of success in many international tournaments over the years. And you can also see a semla bun, which I hope when you come to Sweden, you will have the opportunity to try. And in the bottom of the screen as well, you can see two people with wreaths around their head, and they are celebrating Swedish midsummer, which is one of the great cultural traditions here in Sweden, on the longest day of the year in the summer. So I sincerely hope that you will be able to celebrate Swedish midsummer when you come to Sweden when you're doing your studies at Lund University.
Those are some of my favorite Swedish traditions, to be honest. Semla and midsummer.
Yes, and I should also add that well, when we're not living in pandemic times, when you arrive at Lund University as an international student, there will actually be an orientation week process where we help you to meet new people and fit into your life at Lund. And one of those activities is actually an organized trip to IKEA. So if you've never been before, you will have the opportunity to be taken to IKEA by authentic Swedes.
Fun and useful.
Exactly. All right, Becca, you would like to discuss?
Yes,
Lund University?
I would love to give you a bit more information about the actual university itself. So Lund University was founded in 1666. So we recently celebrated our 350-year anniversary. We are a comprehensive university, meaning that we cover a wide range of different subject areas, and we're research intensive, ranked among the top 100 universities in the world. We are a public, non-profit university, and we have over 43,700 students and 8,380 staff. In terms of the way that the university is situated in the city, the main campus is in the small historic university town of Lund. And Lund is a city dating back to the year 990, so it's a very old town. And it has a population of around 120,000 people. There are students from over 130 countries represented in that population. So there is a truly international atmosphere in the city. Everything is within cycling distance, so you have academia, business, culture, and nature, all easily reachable, and a picturesque city centre, which includes the cathedral, which you can see on your screen right now, surrounded by winding cobblestone streets. So it's a really beautiful and traditional European university feel to the campus and to the town itself. The additional campuses that we have include one in the city of Malmö, which, as Tim mentioned, is the third largest city in Sweden, with around 350,000 inhabitants. So as you can see, it's a bit bigger than Lund itself. It's only 10 minutes by train from Lund and about 30 minutes by train from Copenhagen Airport, which makes it a great location with lots within reach from there. As Tim mentioned earlier, it's famous for the turning torso building, which again you can see in a nice close-up now on your screen. And the campuses or the departments which are based there include fine arts, music, and public health. So if you're interested in those programs, you may end up finding yourself studying in Malmö. But many other students also choose to live there anyway, especially perhaps in their second year or beyond, depending where you prefer, because it is so close to the actual city as well of Lund. And then finally, our third campus is in the city of Helsingborg, which is the fastest growing city in Sweden. Helsingborg is about 30 minutes by train from Lund and about 20 minutes by boat across to Denmark. So you can actually get a ferry across to the other side of the Öresund channel here. And the historic town Helsingør lies on the other side of the channel. It's a beautiful place to visit if you ever get the chance. As you can see, it's the fastest growing city in Sweden, and it's a hub for entrepreneurs and logistics companies. It's located by the sea, so it's a lovely location if that's something that you enjoy. And it has around 4,000 students, so it's about 10% of our student body. And the programs that you would study there would include service management, strategic communication, energy efficient and environmental building design. So if you're interested in those, then you might end up studying at Helsingborg. So we've already kind of touched on this, but we're really proud to have so many international students at Lund University. We're proud to be Sweden's most international university. 23% of our student body is international, and at master's level, that actually goes up. It's about 60% of our students in our international master's programs. We attract students from over 130 countries for those programs, and we also attract exchange students as well from more than 600 partner universities worldwide. It's sometimes possible when you're studying a master's, particularly in a bachelor's, for you to go on an exchange as well. So it's worth asking about that if you know what program you're interested in and you're interested in the exchange. So you really can meet the world at LU. And also in terms of student life and the atmosphere in the city, Lund University is famous for its unique and vibrant traditions. Many long-standing activities are there which form the heart of student life in Lund. One of those is the Last of April night. On the 30th of April, students will gather for a breakfast with champagne and strawberries, and then in the day they often gather in the Stadsparken, the city park, for barbecues and drinks, ending with the traditional Valborg bonfire and singing songs in the evening, and then possibly followed by attending the student theatre premiere at the AF building. There's also the Lund Carnivalen, which is the student carnival arranged every 4th year by around 5,000 student volunteers. It's a really old tradition dating back to 1849, and each carnival has a different theme. We also have the Specs Student Theatre, which does great shows combining humour and talent, which makes a really unique, enjoyable experience for the audience members. We have student nations, which are basically social clubs that organise extracurricular social activities like formal dinners, pub nights, weekend brunches, sports and balls. And it's a great place to go and get your lunch when you're on campus, to go to the nation and get a cheap and nutritious student-made meal. Student unions are also present at the campus, which monitor education quality and student influence through some 1,000 representatives on all levels. And they also run the careers fairs. We have the Academic Society, which operates activities like television, radio, theatre, drama, choirs. I mean, you can tell from what I'm saying that there's an awful lot of different options to get involved with, depending on what your interests might be. And there's a bunch of student associations with a broad range of different topics and interests. So you're never going to be stuck for something to do, is the message there, really. And we have 9 faculties. We are a comprehensive university, as I mentioned, so we have various different areas. And we are research intensive. And what that means is that 1/3 of our budget goes to research. And we have world-leading research in over 30 fields. So I hope that gives you like a good overview of who we are and the kinds of information that you need in terms of student life and the university itself. And now we're going to move on to a bit more specific information about the programs that you can study with us. So I'll hand back over to Tim. And Tim, would you like to speak about the bachelor's programs?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for that summary of the university and the very famous student life that we have here in Lund. So I would absolutely like to talk to you a little bit more about our international English taught bachelor's programs that we offer right here at Lund University. So we offer 9 English taught bachelor's degree programs, and all of these programs are 3 years in duration. So if you're admitted to a bachelor's degree program at Lund University, fantastic news. You're going to be spending the next 3 years in Sweden. And I should actually say that at least the next 3 years in Sweden, because many of our graduates of our international degree programs like Sweden so much that they choose to stay. Some choose to stay here in Sweden or move to a bigger city like Malmö, Gothenburg, or Stockholm. So there's plenty of options as well when you are finished our programs as well. All our bachelor's programs are course-based and conclude with a thesis. So as Rebecca said, we are a research-intensive university, and as an international degree student, you will actually have the opportunity to conduct your own academic research, of course, with the guidance and supervision of professors and other academic staff as well. And of course, of your peers who will give you a lot of inspiration for research ideas as well. There is also the opportunity to study abroad for a semester, and some programs actually have the option of taking an internship as well. And some students do choose to take that internship option to give themselves a little bit more practical experience in combination with their theoretical studies as well. But of course, the choice is yours. So you can go to lunduniversity.lu.se/programs to find all the degree programs on offer. But seeing as we do only have 9 English taught bachelor's degree programs, I can quickly summarize them for you. And they are biomedicine, development studies, economy and society, fine arts, international business, mathematics, music performance, physical geography and ecosystem science, and physics. So when thinking about applying to our international bachelor's degree programs, there are some general entry requirements that you need to meet. So in order to meet the general entry requirements for bachelor's studies in Sweden, you must have successfully completed your upper secondary or high school studies by the time you apply. So please listen carefully. If you are in the final year of your high school studies, you really need to hear this, because we do get quite a lot of questions about this every year. You cannot apply to a bachelor's degree program without your final upper secondary documents. So you cannot apply with predicted grades. We understand that this is actually rather frustrating for some applicants, but this regulation is actually established by the university admissions in Sweden, not by Lund University. So this regulation applies to all Swedish universities. So you have to have finished your upper secondary school studies and have your final grades by the time you apply for an international bachelor's degree program. And you also need to prove that you meet the required level of English 6, and there are a number of ways to do this, which we will talk to you about a little bit later in this presentation. So there are also sometimes program-specific requirements when making an application to an international bachelor's degree program. And you need to meet these in order to be considered eligible for selection. So you need to see the tab Requirements and Selection found on each program page. And the entry requirements to our bachelor's programs are in fact based on the Swedish education system. Now, there's something else that you also need to be aware of when making your application, and that is country-specific requirements. So depending on the country in which you completed your upper secondary studies, there may be additional country-specific requirements that you need to consider. Now, unfortunately, we don't have time to go through all of these country-specific requirements today because they can differ from country to country. So what you need to do as an applicant is you need to check the country-specific requirements that apply to you at the website universityadmissions.se. So we cannot stress this enough. Please be sure to check the country-specific requirements that apply to you. All right, and now that we've covered our international bachelor's degree programs taught in English, Rebecca would like to talk to you about our quite extensive range of international master's degree programs that we offer.
Yes, exactly. So our master's programs are much larger in number than our bachelor's programs taught in English. We offer over 130 English taught master's programs across a wide range of subject areas. Most of them are 2 years, while there are a few which are 1 year. And as with the bachelor's programs, they are course-based and they're concluded with a thesis or a degree project. So unfortunately, I can't list all of those on this slide because there are so many, but you are really welcome to go to our university webpage and to browse all of the programs that we offer from the master's level. Yeah. We have many truly unique and interdisciplinary programs. So many of our programs cover multiple disciplines and areas. And they're always based on current research and are often connected to industry or business or society. Something relevant and applied is usually at stake with all of our programs. There's the opportunity to tailor your coursework with electives, and this usually would happen in the second year of studies. And it's really something that many students find attractive about the programs, is that in that second year, you can specialize more depending on your particular interest. As with the bachelor's, you may be able to undertake an internship or a study abroad option, and all masters will be aiming to prepare you for continued research, such as a PhD, if that's something that you're interested in, or a job. Okay. In order to meet the general entry requirements for masters, then you must have been awarded a bachelor's degree. But unlike with the applications for bachelors, where, as Tim mentioned, you have to be able to submit your final results by the document deadline, with the master's programs, if you're in your final year of study, you are going to be able to apply for a master's. So if you're finishing your bachelor's this year and you're in your final year of your bachelor's, you can apply to start a master's program next year, but you need to provide evidence that you are enrolled in your final year of your bachelor's, and you also need to submit your transcripts so far. And then, of course, you'll provide your actual completed degree certificate and your completed transcript before you actually step into the classroom and start your studies, because you will still need to see those before you begin. So that's a slight difference. I wanted to mention as well with what you mentioned, Tim, about the bachelor's programs. Of course, we are talking about the first application period. Like if anybody is an EU student listening, then we can talk to you about what is different for you. But in general, that is the distinction between the two. With the masters, if you're in your final year, we can potentially let you apply for a master's. Yes, and also you must prove that you meet the required level of English 6, just as with the bachelor's programs. So again, similar to the bachelor's programs, each master's program also will have program-specific entry requirements that you must meet. So on each of the program pages, you can find more detail about exactly what is expected to apply to that program. Most of the master's programs will require previous studies that are relevant to the master's itself, but some are a bit more flexible. So for example, our public health program is looking for students who have a previous bachelor's, but they aren't so specific about what particular subjects that they're looking for, because there might be different motivations for people to study public health depending on a range of different backgrounds. So you have to check what you are interested in and what you're eligible for. Those are the two things you need to check when you're looking at a master's program. And most of our programs will require you to continue specializing in a particular field. There is no GRE or GMAT test required for entry to LU programs. Some of our business programs do allow you to submit a GRE or a GMAT test. If you have a really well-balanced test that you're very proud of, some of our business programs do allow you to submit it. So check on the program page to see whether that's the case for you, but you do not have to submit one of those tests. And then, as Tim already said, it's really important as well with the master's programs to check the country-specific requirements. So there may be additional country-specific requirements to consider. For example, some countries require you to have studied a 4-year bachelor's degree, not a 3-year bachelor's degree. So it's important to check whether that's the case for you. And now I'll hand back to Tim, because now we're going to talk about the English requirements in a bit more detail.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Rebecca. So we absolutely understand that many students are very interested to know about how they can prove their English language proficiency. And this is a question that comes up every year from many applicants. So we would like to touch on this in a little bit more detail. So proving your English language proficiency, no matter where you're from or who you are, or even if you are a native English speaker, all applicants must prove their English language proficiency. English level 6 is required for almost all programs. Do of course check on the program page to be 100% sure, but Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that some of our linguistics programs, for example, do require a higher level of English proficiency, whereas yes, all right,
exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say with that, that English 6 will always be the minimum, but some may require a little bit higher.
Exactly, yes, good summary. And there are several ways in which students can prove their English language proficiency. So some applicants can prove their English language proficiency through their upper secondary education. So for example, students from countries like, if you're from Germany or the Netherlands, you actually can prove your English language proficiency from your secondary school education. Also, if you're from a Nordic country, or if you're from an English-speaking country such as the UK, Ireland, Canada, USA, Australia, or New Zealand, this will be sufficient. However, you can also prove your English language proficiency through previous university studies. So if you have studied in English full-time for 1 year full-time studies, or the equivalent to 60 ECTS credits, that in most cases should prove your English language proficiency. For example, if you've done a year abroad in the United Kingdom, a full-time year abroad in the United Kingdom, for example, Australia or the United States, that will be sufficient. And in most cases, if you've studied for 1 year full-time on exchange in English in a country in the European Union, this will also be, in most cases, sufficient to prove your English language proficiency as well. Now, another way to prove your English language proficiency, which is always a good idea, is through an internationally recognized English test, such as a TOEFL test or an IELTS test. And you can find a complete list of the internationally recognized English tests on the university admissions webpage. Now, one type of test, which is not really a test, but one type of question we get quite a lot these days about English language proficiency is if having completed Duolingo is sufficient to prove your English language proficiency. And while Duolingo is a fantastic tool and application for learning not just English, but many languages, unfortunately, completing Duolingo will not be sufficient to prove your English language proficiency at a required academic level. So that is a summary of how you can prove your English language proficiency. But as myself and Rebecca have said several times already in the presentation, please check this for yourself at universityadmissions.se to find clear details on how to prove your English language proficiency. Do not leave this up to chance. Every year, there are some unfortunate applicants who assume that they meet the required level of English, but they do not double check it. So when you're going through your application and you have your application checklist with your general requirements, the program specific documents, and one of those stages also needs to be your English language proficiency. So please do double check this one when you're making your application. All right, now many of you also have questions about tuition fees for non-European Union citizens, and Rebecca can cover this for us now.
Yes, yeah, we just have to make a brief note about this because it's quite straightforward, really. The simple suggestion here is that all non-EU citizens are required to pay tuition for their studies at Lund University. And program tuition fees vary depending on which program you study. So you need to go to the program webpage and check the tab which refers to tuition fees in order to check what your tuition fees would be. The tuition fee is paid in installments, one in advance of each semester. So that means 2 times a year you make a payment. And yeah, as you can see on here, it's non-EU citizens who are required to pay tuition. So if you do have EU citizenship, the good news is that you are exempt from tuition fees. But other than this, there is not really any flexibility. There's a couple of categories of resident in Sweden who may be able to have a tuition fee exemption, but this is quite rare. So yeah, if you think that could apply to you because you currently live in Sweden, of course, feel free to ask us about it. But other than that, you will usually be expected to pay fees. So now we actually got quite a lot of information already, but we're going to go through when to apply for degree studies and that application process in a bit more detail in terms of the timeline. So Tim, would you like to cover this?
Absolutely. So there are quite a few details that need to be covered here. So pay careful attention while we discuss about how to apply for degree studies at Lund University, or I should say when to apply. So the main international application round runs from the 18th of October until the 17th of January. So we have opened for applications, and we open for applications on Monday. And you have up until the 17th of January to choose which programs you want to apply for and rank them in order of preference. So there is, in fact, a 2-stage deadline. So the 17th of January is the date that, as I said, you need to choose the programs and rank them in order of preference. But then you do, in fact, have until the 1st of February to submit all your documents to your university admissions account. And then the big day when admission results are announced is in April. So as you can see, this is a rather long process. If you're tuning into this webinar today, that is fantastic, because that means that you are a focused student who is planning and ensuring that you make a complete and correct application on time. So we're very, very pleased to see so many people joining this webinar today. And then studies will in fact begin in late August, early September, which is a fantastic time of year here in Sweden, the end of summer, and that's when your studies will begin. So now is the time to look through our program pages, do your research about which program fits your academic profile, fits your academic vision, and your vision for your future career as well. And you should note that all students, even students, so students from the EU, non-EU, and also Swedish students, can and should apply for studies in this application round. And it's important to note that the majority of our master's programs only start in late August each year. So for that reason, this is our main application round where all programs are open for applications. So in almost all cases, you need to be, if you want to study here at Lund University, you need to be admitted to studies in the main application round, which begins in autumn. Not many of our programs begin in the spring semester. In fact, it's usually only our study abroad Swedish course packages and occasionally our GIS, remote GIS program that begin in the spring. There is very little other programs that begin in the spring semester.
I just wanted to add, Tim, to that,
yes.
that our master's programs, so you may have already started to pick up that there is a later application round that is available for EU citizens, but only for bachelor's studies. So if you're looking to apply for a master's, this is the only application round that you should be looking to apply in, because there is no guarantee that our masters will open in the second application round. Perhaps one or two may, but this is not common or expected. So for that reason, that's why we especially recommend, if you're applying for a master's and if you're non-EU, then this is the application round for you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway, everybody should apply in this round anyway, but yeah.
Exactly. And if you're applying for bachelor studies and you just heard Becca say that there is in fact a second application round, that is primarily for citizens of the European Union, because if you're not a citizen of the European Union, you will have to apply for a residence permit to live in Sweden while you complete your studies. And if you apply in the second application round and get admitted later in the second application round, this means that you will not have enough time to apply for a residence permit if you're a non-EU citizen. So don't want to talk about too many dates and make things too complicated.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're a non-EU student who wants to apply for bachelor's degree studies, then you have to apply in the main application round as well. And
so these are the dates you need really for most
exactly.
people.
Exactly. So what we're saying in a roundabout way about the bachelor's applicants is that if you do not have your final documents, your final upper secondary school documents by the 1st of February, then you will have to actually take a gap year if you want to complete studies at Sweden. All right, so now it's time for me to introduce a very, very important website. And that website we have mentioned several times already, and that is universityadmissions.se. So this is the national application portal that all applicants use when applying for degree studies, international degree studies in Sweden. So no matter if you're applying for studies at Lund University or at another university in Sweden, you need to make your application through this website. So of course, use the Lund University English language website to do your research about the programs that we offer, our fantastic array of student life and the research that's being done at Lund University. But when the time comes to actually make your application, you're going to make it at universityadmissions.se. So you should make yourself very familiar with this website. So step number one, when you get to universityadmissions.se, you need to create an account. Now, please be sure to only create one account and make sure you are the only one who has access to this account. And very, very importantly, please use an email address that you have access to and that you check regularly, because we will send out important application information to you via this email address. All right, so step number two, what you need to then do is select your programs. So you need to select the programs that you want to apply for. And you can choose up to 4 master's programs in your application for studies at Sweden. And if you're applying for bachelor studies, you can actually choose up to 8 programs in your application for studies. So if you find several programs that you're interested in, there's no need to stress too much because you can apply for multiple programs. Although we strongly recommend that you apply for Lund University programs in the top position. And as we will discuss slightly later, if you want to apply for a scholarship and you want to be eligible for a scholarship at Lund University, then you need to put a Lund University program as your first choice when ranking your program choices. And you can apply for programs at one or several different universities in Sweden. And we would like to remind you that you should only apply for programs that you are in fact eligible for. Because if you're not eligible for a program, then university admission staff are simply going to strike down your application and it's not going to be considered. So always be sure to double check all the programs' entry requirements to make sure that you're eligible for the programs that you're applying for. And the deadline to select your programs is the 17th of January. So we just opened for applications on Monday. You do have quite a bit of time to select and rank your programs. So it's great that you're tuning into this webinar already at this early stage of the application process. Step number 3, ranking your program choices in order of preference. So I already touched on this a little bit. So if you apply to more than one program, you must rank your program choices in order of preference. So you can only be offered admission to one program in Sweden. So the program that you want the most should be ranked as your first choice. And the other choices, the other programs, can be considered as backup options. So think long and hard about which programs you really want to be, which program you want to be admitted to the most. And as I've already mentioned, the ranking will affect your chances of receiving a scholarship from Lund University. So top tip for all of you, if you're a non-EU applicant who wants to receive a tuition fee scholarship, you really should put Lund University as your first choice. And this will greatly enhance your chances of receiving a scholarship from us. And the deadline to rank your programs is the 17th of January. So please note that after the 17th of January, you cannot change the ranking of your program. So every year, some students contact us and they say, oh, well, I applied for development studies as my first choice and global studies as my second choice. And I got admitted to my first choice, development studies. But now I've decided that I actually want to study global studies. But unfortunately, seeing as it's after the 17th of January, it is not possible to change the rankings of your program at that time. And step 4, you need to submit all required documents, including the proof of English proficiency, by the 1st of February document deadline. So the deadline to rank your programs is the 17th of January, and then you do have a small window, additional window of time to submit all required documents. So if you need to take an English test to prove your English language proficiency, take that English test now, because we do not want you to be stressed at the end of January waiting for the results of your English test to come through. We want you to have those test results ready for your application as early as possible. All right, so we do have a little bit more additional information about the documents required for applicants. And Rebecca, perhaps you would like to cover this a little bit more.
Sure, yeah, because we go into some detail here about the different kinds of documents that you must submit. Of course, we are recording this session, so don't worry if you need to come back to this to look over it again, because there's a few things here. But basically, the main thing that you need to remember is that if you're a bachelor's applicant, you need to, as we've mentioned, submit your record of your completed upper secondary education and your, if you have a degree as well, because some students are applying for a bachelor's having already completed another bachelor's, then you can submit your degree certificate as well. You need proof of English language proficiency and also your ID, your copy of your passport with your personal data and your photo. And as we've said, you must submit those upper secondary documents by the document deadline. You can't do anything with preliminary or expected grades.
I would also like to add here that there are some quite rather specific guidelines about how your documents should be uploaded. So be sure to check them on the university admissions website as well. But in essence, they need to be scanned in a clear and readable way. And in some cases, many documents need to be signed and stamped by a specific representative from that university. So always be sure to check those document requirements as well.
So then if we move on to the documents for the master's applicants, it's very similar. You need your transcripts, your degree certificate, your proof of English proficiency, and your ID. And as we mentioned, you can apply before you finish your bachelor's degree, but you need to submit your documentation showing that you're enrolled in your last year and your transcripts so far. So that could be a letter from a university or a form which you can find on university admissions, which they can fill out. And the next slide talks about what Tim just mentioned, actually, which is that you must check specific instructions for wherever you studied. So you have to go to the country-specific page and look at special instructions. That's the place where you'll see a paragraph about anything particular to your country of study. So, for example, students with studies from certain countries must provide a translated copy of all of their documents in the original and in English or Swedish. Most people find it easier to do a translation to English through an official company, and it must be an official company. So that's that's another thing to note there. And it's important to go there and to check what you need to do for those particular documents. Then we also have mentioned before that each program has specific requirements, but in addition to the eligibility requirements, there also is often a few extra documents that each program requires. So you need to bear in mind that in addition to submitting your degree certificate and your transcript or your high school studies, for example, for master's programs, you also will most likely need to provide special documents such as a CV, a statement of purpose, which some people sometimes refer to as a personal statement. It's something where you explain your motivation for study. And particularly my top tip there is to really pay attention to the content of the program that you're applying to and think about how you're going to apply that outside of your studies or after your studies. That's what I would recommend with that purpose statement of purpose. But each program will have further guidance as to what they expect. Or a portfolio, for example, if you're applying for an architecture or an art program, they may need to see your work. So on the program pages, check on the tab called Apply and follow the instructions for any of these program-specific documents that may be required. You should only submit documents which are specifically requested. So if they don't say that they need letters of recommendation, then you don't submit those because they won't be considered and they may only just clog up your application and get in the way and prevent them from seeing the documents that are actually important. So don't submit things unless they're requested. With bachelor's studies, there are generally no program-specific documents required. So everything will be based on your upper high school or your upper secondary studies. I could cover this last step, Tim, if you'd like to, since it's the last one in the...
I'm happy to cover it.
Okay.
Yes. So step number 5 is paying the application fee or proving your exemption by the 1st of February. So when making an application to international degree studies in Sweden, all applicants who are not an EU citizen or an EEA citizen are required to pay an application fee to university admissions in Sweden. And this is in order to allow your application to be assessed. So the application fee is 900 Swedish crowns. And only one application fee per application round is required. So even if you apply for multiple programs at different universities, you only need to make one payment of the application fee. And just to be absolutely clear here. This is not an application fee which is created or asked for by Lund University. This is an application fee which goes directly to university admissions, the central university admissions authority in Sweden. And this allows them to process your application. Now, the application fee payment must reach Lund University admissions in Sweden by the 1st of February. So the best way to make this payment is, of course, with a credit card, and please be sure to make this payment a few days at the minimum before the 1st of February, because we don't want you to miss out on having your application processed just because you made a payment at a later date. There is also information on the university admissions website about how to make the payment via bank transfer, although we strongly recommend that you make it using a credit card. Now, if you are a citizen of the European Union or the European Economic Area from a country such as Switzerland or Norway, then you do not need to actually pay an application fee, but you must prove your exemption by the 1st of February. So what you need to do is submit proof of your EU or EEA citizenship status to university admissions in Sweden by the 1st of February. So a copy of your passport or other official identification document which clearly states your citizenship status will be enough to prove your exemption here. All right, so now we have covered the application process and our bachelor's and master's programs and gone through all the steps that you need to take in order to make an application. So we will now move on to the very exciting part of this whole process, which is the day that admission results are announced. So Rebecca, would you like to discuss admission results?
Sure. So the dates that you need, the exciting dates, will be 7th of April for master's applicants and the 13th of April for bachelor's applicants. Admission results get announced through your university admissions account, so you receive an email confirming whether or not you've received an offer of study from any of the programs that you applied for. So it's really important that you, as we mentioned earlier, sign up with an email address where you can receive mail and you can check that. But you can also log in to university admissions to see your offers. Once you've actually got admitted, then all of our admitted students will receive information about next steps. And that includes how to make your tuition fee payment, your first tuition fee payment, how to apply for a residence permit, how to apply for housing, and what will happen at arrival. So all of those things will, be discussed closer to the time, and you will get all of that information sent through to you. So now we have a final section, I believe, in this presentation. Well, there's just one or two more things on our agenda for the day, and one of those is to do with scholarships and funding. So Tim, would you like to go through this?
Absolutely, thank you, Rebecca. So we understand that many of you do have questions about living costs and scholarships and funding your studies, so we'd like to touch on that briefly today as well. So there are some people that say, or some students that ask us, is it expensive to live in Sweden? And when you're an international student. And to answer this, we would say that in total, we recommend that you have approximately $1,000 per month to cover all of your living expenses. So a recommended monthly budget could look something like this. So you might spend around, this is of course all an approximation, and you can of course always spend more money. And in fact, I know of many international students who have spent less than this as well. So you would, but a general estimate we can give you is about $275 a month on food, between $375 to $560 a month on accommodation, of $50 to $115 a month on course literature. Although if you're a resourceful and engaged student, perhaps you might be able to find a way to find some of this literature a little bit cheaper. And then of course, you will want to spend money on clothing, leisure, and your phone bill, etc., which we have allocated about $175 for here. Something very important to note is that if you're a non-EU EEA citizen who needs to apply for a residence permit to live in Sweden, then you must have the funding for your living costs for 12 months in your bank account when applying for the residence permit. So you need to actually show the Swedish Migration Agency that you have a certain amount of money to cover your living costs to ensure that you're going to be okay when you live here in Sweden. And this changes slightly year to year, but approximately it is about $995 per month for 12 months. And then you will be, if you can prove that you have the funding to cover that amount of time, then if you meet all the other requirements, then you could be granted a residence permit as well. But no need to, it's just good that you know that this is one of the conditions. When you are admitted to studies, then we will go into a lot more information about how to apply for a residence permit as well. All right, so now we understand that many of you are interested in scholarships. So as Rebecca has already said, if you are a citizen of the European Union or the European Economic Area, you do not need to pay tuition fees. So that's very fortunate for you. But if you are required to pay tuition fees, then there are in fact several options for scholarships for non-EU students that you can learn more about. So you can take a look at our website, Lund. If you Google something along the lines of Lund University scholarships, you will come to our specially dedicated scholarship page, which gives you a good outline of all the scholarships available, such as the Lund University Global Scholarship, which is a partial or full tuition fee scholarship. There are also other scholarship sources available, such as the Swedish Institute Scholarship, which I thoroughly recommend that you investigate as well. And then, of course, we also strongly recommend you to investigate other scholarship sources from your home country as well, because there is a lot of scholarships out there for students wishing to study at a university level. So all applicants who, go ahead.
Sorry
Rebecca.
to interrupt, Tim.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that we did have a question from somebody watching, which asked how much the Lund Scholarship covers for a master's program. And as you just said, it's a partial up to full tuition fee discount. So that would be between 25 and I think it's 90%. It's a very small amount that isn't covered. But I just wanted to answer that while we're on this topic.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you so much for that, Rebecca. And I should also note at this point that, as you can imagine, our scholarships, our scholarships are very competitive. So you should not count on receiving a scholarship. You should always investigate other funding sources early on to ensure that you can cover your tuition fee costs and your living costs, and then sort of consider a scholarship as a bonus option if one does come your way after you make an application. Anyway, all applicants who make a complete application for studies by the deadline will receive an email from Lund University in early February with information on how to apply for these scholarships. And you cannot apply for a scholarship until you have first made a complete and correct application for studies. So the first thing that you need to think about now is making a complete and successful application. And when February comes around, then you can actually think about applying for the scholarships. But of course, we understand you want to research those scholarships and you want to look into that now. So go ahead and take a look on our website to find out more details about what scholarships are available. And as I've also already mentioned, you should never really rely on the scholarships provided by Lund University and the Swedish Institute, as they are very, very competitive. You should always have a plan B about how to fund your studies. And you should always also look at external scholarships and organizations and other foundations in your home country or region. Bank loans and grants are another option for some applicants. So we do encourage you to take a look into the options available to you there. And of course, it's October now, but the time to pay those tuition fees will come around faster than you think. So start looking into those different options now. All right, so that brings us to almost the end of our application. Sorry, of our presentation. I'm thinking so much about applications that just slipped out. But we would like to conclude with 10 tips for making a successful application for studies. And Rebecca, would you like to discuss these tips?
Sure, yeah. So as we've kind of hopefully drilled in by now, you need to make sure that you meet all the entry requirements before you apply. You need to check your country-specific page for guidance, for additional requirements, for example, eligibility and document requirements. You need to ensure that you have an accepted proof of English proficiency or take a test as soon as possible. So check that soon and arrange that as quick as you can if you need to. You should choose and rank the programs in the order you most want, no later than 17th of January, and then pay the application fee early on so that we receive that payment before the deadline. You should organise your documents and submit those early as well, because if there is anything missing and you get notified by the university admissions team, but you get notified after the deadline, then there's nothing you can do. So we recommend that you submit those documents, perhaps in November, for example, so that you have plenty of time for the university admissions team to look at those documents and let you know if there is something missing so that you can correct it before the deadline. You need to make sure that you prepare those documents in the right way, according to the instructions. Ensure that all documents and the application fee or your proof of exemption are submitted by the 1st of February. You must stick to those deadlines. They are not flexible. They cannot change. So even if you miss it by one day, unfortunately, that's too late. And you need to keep checking your university admissions in Sweden account and your email account regularly, including your spam folder in case something gets put in the wrong place. So you must keep you have the responsibility to make sure that you receive the messages coming through. Yeah, so I guess, Tim, you can just end with a couple of points about other events that we're going to be holding soon.
Exactly. So we are very active here at Lund University at External Relations with a number of virtual events which you can attend this autumn. So we very much encourage you to take a look at our upcoming virtual events page on our website, lunduniversity.lu.se/virtual-events. And there you can see that a list of all the events that we are hosting this autumn. And I believe we are hosting about 90 events, webinars, fairs, Q&A panels with current students and staff. We have some subject-specific weeks covering each subject area. And we also have, starting on November 22nd, we have a dedicated application week where we will have a number of webinars with current staff and students, as well as webinars on how to make a complete and correct application to Lund University. So there's a whole host of ways you can engage with us. Don't be shy. We want to talk to you. We want to give you the correct information, and we want you to come to Lund University. So please attend as many events that you can. There's also a few other ways to connect with us, and that is, as I mentioned, our subject area week events. So you can check the webpage, lunduniversity.lu.se, for more info on our subject area weeks as well. And a fantastic way to gain a deeper insight into student life at Lund University is to chat directly with current students. So we have over 80 student ambassadors here at Lund University. And if you go to our website, lunduniversity.lu.se/chat-current-students, you can chat directly with our current students using an app called UniBuddy. So you simply download the app for free, and then you can instantly scroll through our student ambassadors. You can see that we have ambassadors from a very wide range of countries and also studying a wide range of subjects. So the chances are you should be able to find an ambassador that's either from your country and studying the program that you're interested in, which will give you a fantastic opportunity to talk directly to a student and see what student life is really like and what it's like to study that program. Another fantastic way to gain insight into student life at Lund University is to follow us on Instagram. So follow our English language account at Lund University to gain insight into student life through the eyes of current students. So here at Lund University, our Instagram account is run by a different student ambassador every week. So you're also able to chat directly with them on the Instagram app, and you're able to follow their stories and their feed posts to see what their accommodation is like, what their program is like, what they're doing in their spare time. And actually many of our ambassadors also have Q&A sessions as well, where you can ask them anything about their student life. So do check us out on Instagram as well if you want to gain a first-hand perspective of what student life is like here at Lund University. And of course, you can also contact the International Marketing and Recruitment team. So that's myself, Rebecca, and there's about 13 of us working to ensure that we get the correct information sent to you about studying here at Lund University. So you can always send an email to us and we will get back to you within minimum a couple of working days. So if you go to lunduniversity.lu.se/degree-studies, you will find a form. And on that form, you can ask us a question about anything to do with applications or student life here at Lund. So there's definitely a lot of ways to get in touch with us, staff, and current students as well. All right, so thank you so much for taking a look at our presentation today. We've been going for about an hour. I can see that basically everyone who was in the webinar at the beginning is still here. So thank you so much. Exactly, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sticking around. And this brings us to the second phase of our webinar, where myself and Rebecca will be answering any questions that you may have about studying at Lund University. So thank you so much for being patient and sitting through the presentation. And myself and Rebecca are really looking forward to digging into your questions now and seeing how we can help you. So one other tip here, if you see a question in the Q&A that you really, really like and that you also want to ask, you can actually give that an upvote, give that the thumbs up, and that will push that question to the top and we will be able to answer that earlier. But I mean, currently we have 11 questions, so I think we will actually be able to answer all questions today as well.
Yeah, let's hope so. But of course, feel free to add further questions if we don't answer the things that you need. We have some time. So I have already had a quick look at some of these questions, and I think we can just dive right in. We could take it in turns, Tim. We could just pick a question and answer. Let's just see how we go.
Let's just take it in turns and go from the top. So it looks like you might want to answer Pikemon there.
Yes, so Pikemon asked, after I pay the fee, is it possible to change the ranking before the deadline? And the answer is, as long as you want to change your ranking before the deadline of 17th of January, you can do that at any time before the 17th. It doesn't matter if you've already paid the fee or not. It's just the deadline which applies to ranking is the 17th of January. I hope that's clear.
Yep, I think that was quite a clear answer there, Rebecca. All right, so we have another question here from Alexandra. And Alexandra asks, hi, is there no possibility to apply if we are in the 12th grade in high school? I only finished high school at the end of June, so I can't attach the final grades transcripts until the application deadline. Okay, so this was something that we discussed already in the presentation, and I'm actually just on screen in front of me bringing up the exact application dates because there's a few little details that we need to consider here as well. So
another student, another attendee to this webinar called Laura asked a really similar question. So Laura, we're going to answer this question for you as well. You asked about whether or not you can submit your transcript by the 21st of June as a supporting document deadline. So I think we should just explain what that refers to, the later deadline.
Exactly. So if you're applying for bachelor's degree studies, there are actually two application rounds, as we mentioned earlier in the presentation. So first things first, if you're applying for an international master's degree program, you have to apply in the main application round, which has the deadlines of the 17th of January and the 1st of February. There's never any second application round. Sometimes our master's programs open for late application if they don't get enough applicants, but we are an incredibly popular university, so our programs are almost always full up. So now, Alexandra, coming back to your question about applying for bachelor's degree studies when you're in the final year of high school, the answer to your question is it depends if you are an EU citizen or not. So if you are not an EU citizen, then you need to apply in the first application round for bachelor's applicants. And that also has the deadline of the 17th of January to rank your courses and the 1st of February to pay the application fee and submit your documents. So if you are not from the European Union or the European Economic Area and you need to apply for a residence permit to study in Sweden, then you have to apply in this first application round to give yourself enough time to then apply for a residence permit. So that means Alexandra, if you are not a European Union citizen and you only have your high school grades in the end of June, then that means you actually are going to have to take a gap year and apply for studies beginning in 2023. However, Alexandra, if you are a citizen of the European Union, then you can actually apply in the second later bachelor's application round. And then the application fee, the application deadline is to rank your courses is the 19th of April. And the supporting document deadline is then the 21st of June. So you can only apply in the second application round if you are an EU or EEA citizen. If you're not an EU or EEA citizen, Alexandra, then you need to apply in the first round. And if you can't apply in the first round, then you have to wait until the next year, unfortunately. Sorry, that was a very convoluted answer, but it is a slightly convoluted situation. So
yeah, I think you made that as clear as you can actually, Tim, because it is quite difficult. But the key thing is, are you an EU citizen? That's the main question. And if so, and you're applying for a bachelor's, you have until the 21st of June, which is the date that Laura also referenced in her question. I'm going to share in the chat actually the key dates and deadlines for both of those application rounds for anybody who is an EU citizen and is watching and would like to see those dates as well confirmed. So I'll just put that in the chat. Oh wait, I shared it to just our hosts and panelists, so I'll just share it again to everybody.
Thank you so much for that, Becca.
Yeah, no problem. It's absolutely fine. Perhaps you would like to just answer one more question, Tim, while I'm just putting this here.
Okay, well, the next question is from Andre Fedorko, and it's a similar question to the previous one. Hi, if I am a student from an EU country who wants to apply for a bachelor's degree, should I wait until the 15th of March and apply in the second round? Well, it depends on if you have your when you're going to have your final upper secondary school grades, Andre. So if you already have completed your upper secondary school studies and you have your diploma and transcript, then you're free to apply in the first application round. But as we've stated already in the presentation, when applying for bachelor's degree studies, you have to have your final transcript and diploma. So if you do not have your final high school transcript and diploma, then you will have to wait until the second application round. But if you already have it, then go ahead and apply in the first application round. And as Rebecca just said, she posted that link to the key dates and deadlines page on the university admissions website in the chat. So I strongly recommend that you take a look at that table because it has all the dates and all the deadlines very usefully mapped out for you there.
Exactly. You can decide based on that whether or not this is an option for you to apply in the second round. Also, there's nothing stopping you from applying in both. If you are able to, if you already have your qualifications this year, then you can apply in both. So there's no reason to wait necessarily. It won't make any difference to your chances of entry. You can apply now and then you can apply again if you need to. So that's a great option to have. Yes, okay, so I can now move on to a question from Martin, who says that they are a student from the US applying to the mathematics degree, and asks here a little bit about the eligibility and whether their qualifications make them eligible. Now, this is a very difficult question to answer for us because, as you already have gathered, this is judged by admissions staff rather than by us at the international marketing team. And the requirements are always stated for bachelor's programs based on the Swedish high school system, which makes it very difficult for us to tell you what would be preferred or what would make you eligible. So I think the best thing for any questions like this would actually be to contact us directly in case we can have a look and see if there's anything we can share with you based on the requirements stated on the web pages. But it may be that you have to go to the country specific pages and have a look at what they say about different places, different countries of study, because in your case, you're asking about a very specific particular kind of study that you could use, and you would need to go and look at the recommendations there to see what counts or what is accepted from that particular from that particular study. So I'm sorry that we can't give you a clearer answer or a clearer guidance about specific questions like that, but you probably just saw the page where you can contact us at Degree Studies. Maybe I can share that as well, like to contact us about more specific questions that relate just to you. We would love it if you would contact us and we can see if we can give you more guidance. And if not, then of course you can always talk to the admissions team at university admissions. But it may be that you have to make your best attempt to figure out your eligibility and apply and see what they say. So I know that that can be quite frustrating as well, that we can't always tell you for sure whether you're eligible before you apply. But that's the best that we can really do, to be honest, in terms of guidance. So I'll just share that link there.
Can always be a bit frustrating, Martin. So we understand because there's so many different levels of education when it comes to international standards. It's always a little bit tricky, but get in touch with us. You can get in touch directly with university admissions, and also, as Becca said, at the end of the day, go ahead and make an application, and that's the more or less the only way to know definitively if you'll be admitted or not. All right, so next question from Laura. Hi, can I already create an account on university admissions if I plan to apply for studies only on autumn 2022? Well, Laura, if you mean that you want to begin your studies in autumn 2022, then yes, you can go ahead and make an account because we are open for applications. We opened on Monday, October 18th, and you're free to go ahead, make an account, and you can even make your application now. There's nothing holding you back. So absolutely, the time to apply is now if you want to begin your studies in autumn 2022. And Becca, actually, I believe you may have clicked that you're
that's
recording
fine.
the answer there.
In case you mean you're planning to apply next year for studies which start in 2023, I can also say there's nothing to stop you from creating an account now, but you should not upload necessarily all of your documents yet, because you would need to check that nothing has changed next year before you submit those documents, and you don't want to have a confusing number of documents on your account. That would be my advice. There's nothing to stop you from doing that, but I would say that you have more time. You can wait until next year. You can come back to a session like this next year, check that everything is still the same as it was the year before, and then upload the correct documents and everything that you need with the full knowledge of exactly what's expected. So I don't think that that was what you meant, but just in case, that's what I would add to that.
All right. That covers all the bases there.
Yeah, just in case. Okay, Linda has asked, hello, are there any recommendations for external scholarships for the EU? Now, in terms of scholarships for EU students, it is obviously a massive advantage in many ways to be an EU or to have an EU nationality, because you already have a tuition fee exemption. So there would not be any scholarships which would give you a tuition fee discount, because you don't need one. You already have a full exemption from tuition fees, which is a great position to be in and often makes it a lot easier financially for students from the EU. You also don't have to provide evidence of your funds before you arrive, for example. So there's a few advantages there. In terms of living costs and scholarships for that, I don't believe that our external scholarships page has very much regarding EU, because of the fact that it's generally an easier process for EU citizens overall to find sources of funding. But I will just check and see whether there's anything on our external scholarships page, and then I will share that in the chat link. Yeah, from what I can see here, most of the countries that we reference here are non-EU countries. But what I would say is that many students from places all across the world, including the EU, will look into local scholarships that are available and will do their own research about companies or perhaps government funded scholarships and local options such as bank loans, which would allow them to cover their day-to-day living costs while they're here. Because of course, not everybody has access to savings or something already. So it's very common for people to seek other sources of funding from local places. But unfortunately, we don't have a comprehensive list of everything that's available, because there's just so many different places in the world that we would have to know a lot about in order to provide that service. So we have some regional managers or regional specialities for certain countries, but not for others. Yeah, that's what I would say. I'm going to share the link to external scholarships anyway for everybody else's benefit. And of course, some of those scholarships may still be something which you would be eligible for, so you can have a look. I've just shared it here. But yeah, most of the time we would say EU citizens particularly would be looking for local options and doing their own research into what kind of funding is available from their home country, because there aren't any specific schemes that we offer at the university for EU citizens.
All right, and the next question we have here is from, oh, where is it gone? There, it's from Gekk. And Gekk asks, I understand that some of the master's programs offered in Lund of a duration between 1 and 2 years. So what's the difference regarding the facilities such as scholarships, health insurance, free Swedish language learning, and a bank account, etc.? And this is actually a very, very good and timely question, Gekk. So first of all, almost all of our master's degree programs are 2 years, although some of our master's degree programs at the Faculty of Economics and Management are more intensive 1-year programs. And there is actually a rather important piece of information that you need to know here. So if you're applying for well, first of all, when it comes to scholarships, you will have an equal opportunity to receive a scholarship from Lund University or the Swedish Institute if you're applying for a 1 or 2 year program. And when it comes to health insurance, all international students are covered by health insurance provided by Lund University when admitted to studies. So what you need to be aware of, though, is that you can only obtain a Swedish personal number if you are admitted to a 2-year program. And a Swedish personal number will make it a lot easier for you to open a Swedish bank account, and will make it a lot easier for you to apply for free Swedish language lessons provided by the local government here in Sweden. So that is actually a slight difference there, and that you should really need to be aware of. Anything else to add there, Becca?
No, I would say in terms of other facilities and the way that you're treated, nothing is different with a 1-year or a 2-year qualification. You still end up with a master's qualification, which is respected equally, whether it's a 1-year or a 2-year master's. But I think you could also mention that the timescales are slightly different, of course. With a 2-year program, you may have a longer period where you could do some kind of independent project or research, for example, in the second year, and then a longer period to write up your thesis, for example. That's not specifically to do with facilities, but just to explain a little further the differences between a 1-year and a 2-year program. That might be helpful, I guess.
Many of those 1-year programs can be a little bit more intensive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's something to bear in mind. I just want to note that someone, I think it was Andre again, asked a question about how to actually find out what specific qualifications mean in your home country. And that's difficult to answer, as we already mentioned. We can't really give very clear guidance because it's only a rough estimate. But I'm going to share 2 web links in the chat, which you may find helpful. The first is a general guide to the way that upper secondary Swedish qualifications can be interpreted. And then the second is a handbook, which is used by the admissions team. Now, I have to give you a word of caution with that second link, which is that cannot be taken as absolute definite guidance, because there is still a lot of leeway that the admissions team has to interpret those qualifications. It's also in Swedish, you have to translate it, so it's not a perfect resource by any means, and we would prefer you to always be aware that you will not have a definite answer until the admissions team actually looks at your qualifications, but perhaps it might help some people to get a little bit of an idea about their qualifications. So I'll just share those as well. Yeah, here we go. So those two links may prove helpful for some students. I just wanted to point that out because I already answered Andre by text there, because it's a little bit more complicated. Yeah, would you like to?
I just saw there's another question there from Martin, and he has sort of naturally asked if there's any way for him to contact the admissions office. So Martin, we totally understand that you want to get in touch with the admissions office to ask about your eligibility requirements when you're applying for, I believe it was the bachelor program in physics or mathematics. Anyway, what I've done, Martin, is I've typed an answer to you. So if you open up the Q&A application and you click onto answered and you scroll through and you scroll down to your name there, you can actually see that I've written the email address to the Lund University admissions office directly. So what you can do is you can send your question directly to them. And seeing as you have such a specific question about the eligibility requirements, they are quite literally the best people to contact about this. So send them an email and be as specific as possible, and they should be able to help you.
One thing I would note with that as well is that if you do contact the admissions team, be aware that they will not pre-assess you, so they won't tell you before you apply whether you're eligible. But I always recommend, if you can ask them questions that are more be specific, but like say it as this particular qualification, what does that mean in this context, rather than please can you pre-assess me and my qualifications, here are my documents, because they won't do that. So if you're asking for more of a general guidance about particular countries, then you're more likely to get a helpful response. And if you find that you can't get a response via email, then you may also wish to call them if that's something that you can do, because then you can speak to an actual admissions officer. So there's a couple of different ways to potentially ask that question, but it is a bit tricky, is the unfortunate thing. So we have a question from Judy, who asks, I have a bachelor's degree from a university in Kenya, and there's some questions here about already having done previous qualifications. Again, I would recommend, Judy, to go onto the program, the country specific page for your particular country of study, to have a look at what is accepted. That's the best place to get that guidance. If for some reason that still does not answer your question, then please do feel free to contact us and we can have a look at it for you or with you. So I hope that's okay. Before you take another question, Tim, I just want to mention as well, I can see that Linda has asked here, are the one-year master's programs also internationally recognized as a full master's degree? And I think we already kind of answered that before, but basically yes, is the answer to the question. Many countries only offer one-year master's degrees, so there's really no negative to having a one-year master's degree in that regard.
Linda, there is absolutely no need to worry. So our one-year degree programs from the School of Economics and Management are absolutely internationally recognized, especially in Europe. For example, our program in finance is officially been ranked as one of the top 50 finance programs in the world, and many of our graduates go on to work in top financial positions in cities like London and New York. So there's absolutely nothing to worry about there. They're certainly recognized. All right, next question here from Samilia. Sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly there. Is there an opportunity to study a one semester abroad available for all master's programs? For most of our master's programs, yes. You basically have the third semester, so to study abroad if you want, or take an elective or take an internship. So your most two-year master's degrees are divided up into 4 semesters, and the first semester of your second year, in almost all cases, gives you an opportunity to study abroad. So even though in many cases you are coming abroad already to Sweden, perhaps you want to take another semester abroad, and you will have the opportunity to do that because Lund University has over 500 partner universities worldwide. So you will have a very extensive range of possibilities if you're looking to study abroad. I'm not sure if it's for every single program, but I know it's for most.
Yeah, I don't think it's for every program. So you would have to ask your program coordinator for the specific program that you're applying to make sure what the options are. Yeah, because it won't be for every program, and I think it's a bit more common at bachelor's level actually, but it's still very common at master's level.
And you can even check on the program page. There's actually a PDF document, a fact sheet, which you can look at, and there will have a more concise layout of the structure of your program. So take a look there. But in most cases, you should be able to do so.
So Micah has said that they submitted proof of their EU citizenship yesterday. How long does it take for the admissions office to send a confirmation of the tuition fee exemption? That question is basically, it's quite a wide open timeline, because once you apply and you submit those documents, it will take a while for the admissions team to actually examine those documents, and we can't really predict when they will do that. They'll definitely do it before the deadline. I think that's all I can really say on that one. You may not hear whether you've been assessed as being fee exempt until that deadline is coming up, or even after the deadline. But if they need you to prove that you are fee exempt, and if there's a problem with that document, they will let you know. If you've already applied now, you have many, many weeks in which they can let you know if there's a problem. So there shouldn't be any issues. But if by the time you get to the end of or the middle of January and you're like, they haven't said that I'm fee exempt, you can always contact them and check that they have you registered as fee exempt.
You know, when we can actually, I would like to chime in here. Yeah. We can actually check that one for you, Micah.
Okay.
So you can, wait a couple of weeks, because university admissions have a lot of applicants, so sometimes can take a while. Wait a couple of weeks and then send us an email via the degree studies form, and we can quickly check for you and confirm.
Oh, that's great. I didn't actually even know that we could do that, so that's wonderful.
Yeah, no, I spend a lot of time doing that around January.
So you're familiar with that, yeah.
So I thought I'd just jump in there and
thank you.
All right, so another question from John. Okay. Oh, it looks like something that you might be able to answer, Becca, being a specialist in UK applications. What is the equivalent to upper secondary for a student currently under Cambridge CAIE curriculum? O levels, AS levels, and A levels.
Well, I'm not actually familiar with the CAIE curriculum, but I am familiar with A levels and GCSEs, which is similar to O levels from what I understand, because I support students who apply from the UK. And in the UK, then they always follow O levels or GCSEs, AS and A level. And upper secondary studies refers to everything up to A level, but it would include your GCSEs, at least in the UK system, because one of the requirements is that you show not only your A levels, but also a certain number of qualifications from your age 16 qualifications, basically, which is O level or GCSE. So I happen to know the answer to that one. I wouldn't know the answer, or at least I think that would be approximately the same. I guess it depends where you studied that qualification, Joanne. But ultimately, you should submit everything that you've done up until your A levels, because everything that you submit will add to your merit score or to your points that you can get from your qualifications. But as we've kind of said, with other questions like this, we can't always answer because it's quite difficult to help you understand those levels. So if anybody else has a similar question about what this means for their country of study, then please do feel free to email us through the degree studies form and we can have a look at that for you. Yep.
Great. And we have a question here from Jasia. Jasia asks, hello, thank you for the amazing presentation. Well, glad you enjoyed it. Happy to make a presentation to you today. And they would like to ask a question about the Lund University Global Scholarship. If it is automatically renewed for the second year for scholarship holders, or if it was renewed based on the student's first year performance. All right, so great question, because many scholarship holders do wonder this. And basically, you would have to do something, you would have to really perform badly for your scholarship to be taken away. So you're granted the scholarship for the duration of your program, and it's almost always renewed. The only time that it would not get renewed was if you were just failing everything and not turning up to class, or you were doing something illegal or something along those lines. Basically, once you're granted the Lund University Global Scholarship, as long as you're performing at a regular level, and many of our Lund University Global Scholarship holders do perform at a very high level because they are high achievers, then it will be renewed. So nothing you need to worry about there, really.
Great. And then we have one more question in the Q&A from Alexandra, asking, could you please tell me about the Swedish National University Aptitude Test, which is sometimes known as the SWISAT. She asks if it's mandatory to pass it in order to be eligible to study a bachelor's program. Now, this is a very good question because there has been some issues with the information on some of our bachelor's programs pages referring to the SWISAT, or the Swedish University Aptitude Test. And that information is specifically targeted to only Swedish applicants, but that's not been made particularly clear on the web pages. So we're having to make sure that we let our students know this, who are not Swedish, that no, you do not require the Swedish National Aptitude Test. That is only for Swedish applicants. And that would be something that they would probably naturally do as part of the process of applying to university in Sweden. And it's only possible to take that test in Swedish. So as you can imagine, it's not something that we would require from our international students. You don't have to speak Swedish to study our international English taught programs. So ignore that particular requirement that's sometimes stated on our bachelor's pages. It's not necessary to take that test. You will be assessed as a non-Swedish international student. So it won't count against you that you don't have that test, because you'll be assessed in a separate group of applicants that do not have that test. So all of you will be in the same group, whereas Swedish applicants who've taken that test will be assessed in their own group based on those results, as well as other things. So I hope that helps and reassures anybody who is worried about that you do not have to take the Swedish National University Aptitude Test.
All right, and we have a final question coming in here from Laura. I just skimmed it, so Rebecca, we might have to both team up to answer this one. So Laura wants to make sure one more thing that refers to her application. And if there is such a requirement for a Swedish taught program, to have a specific note to samhällskunskap,
Mm.
and there's no such subject taught in her high school. Is it correct that she can refer to note 1 to both economics and politics that are being taught in her school? Thank you very much. Okay, well, first of all, Laura, if you're a Swedish applicant and you want to apply to a Swedish degree program, then it's a completely separate process with a completely separate application round and completely different set of entry requirements. But
It's
I'm
not something we can really advise on, is it, Tim, in terms of the
yeah.
Swedish
Although I'm
program?
just not sure if Laura is actually asking about applying to an
Yeah,
international degree program coming from a Swedish
exactly.
school background. So, Laura, my answer here would be that you probably should reach out to the program coordinator for the specific program that you're looking to apply to, because they can give you the best advice here. You can always find the contact details for the program coordinator on the program page of each specific program, although yesterday for 24 hours there was a glitch on our web and all the contact details were removed, but I believe that glitch has been fixed now. Anything else you'd like to add here, Becca? I mean, I can sense that Laura might be getting a bit frustrated because we can't give her the
Yeah, sorry,
precise
Laura.
answer, but we don't want to give a wrong answer here
No,
either.
exactly. What I would say is that on one of those links that I've just shared, the second to last link actually that I've just shared, there is a general guide to how to interpret those specific requirements based on the Swedish system, which may not be available in your country of study. And one of those is social sciences, which I believe is what we translate that particular samhällskunskap. I think that's what we translate that to, is either social sciences or potentially citizenship or something similar to that. So that particular requirement on the website, it says that in Sweden, students can study social studies 1 and 2 and history 1 and 2, but for other like countries, then you would have to have either study social studies, history, or 1 or more general subjects within humanities and social science that contain that subject. So the options are mainly around humanities subjects, and history is the most commonly used one that people use to meet that requirement if it's requested for a bachelor's program. But you could also think about things like if you study something like politics, citizenship, or social like development of any kind, that may also be accepted. So basically, because that particular subject is not very common in other countries, there is a certain amount of flexibility to what they will accept, and we know that, but we still can't say exactly. I'm sorry, but I hope that helps, that you can kind of see the general area that you're looking at there. Yeah.
All right, and Andre asked another question. Andre is, if I'm applying in the second application round because my current studies are not finished yet, are there some steps that I should take right now before the second application round opens? I already know what programs I would like to apply for, so can I now calmly wait until March and apply then? Oh, Andre, you're very organized, and that's great that you already know the programs that you want to apply to. And basically, if you already know what you want to do, you do just need to wait until March 15th, 2022, when we open in the second application round for bachelor's applicants. You can create an account now on university admissions, but don't start your application until the second application round opens on the 15th of March. So nothing really that you need to do at this stage. But I'm guessing that you are in the final year of your secondary school studies. So yes, when it comes to your application, you can calmly wait. But when it comes to your secondary school studies, you of course need to still focus on those and make sure you get the best possible grade. Yeah.
And you can also perhaps take this time to research your funding options and plan ahead for that. If you are an EU citizen, which I assume you must be because you're considering applying in the second round, you may want to start thinking about things like housing, even though you can't yet apply for housing and you shouldn't apply until you have an offer, but you may want to start researching the kinds of options, because that can be a long process for EU students who do not have a housing guarantee. Apart from that, then I would just say check what documents you will need to prepare, and prepare those nice and early so that you have them ready. But yeah, mainly calmly wait, as you say. That's a great way of putting it.
All right, well, the time here in Sweden is 13 minutes to 6, and we have no further questions in the Q&A. So that looks like our presentation and this webinar is over for the day. So thank you everyone who attended this webinar. It will be uploaded on the Lund University website, so you can watch it back again. And thank you to everyone who asked questions. And we really do hope that we were able to provide useful information to you today. We very much wish you the best of luck when it comes to making your application. And we hope to see you in Lund in autumn 2022.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.